Oh boy, that last video sure was a long one. I can't wait to start working on the next. Surely it won't be a soul-sucking pain in my various regions that takes another 5 months to make. What, were you expecting a punchline? Joke's on you, because Disruptor for the Ps1 was a surprisingly refreshing experience. Disruptor is what we would nowadays call a boomer shooter, but back then they would have just called it a regular old first-person shooter. For those unfamiliar, a boomer shooter is the name given to the relatively new subgenre of FPS games that emulate early iterations of the genre, a la Doom and Quake. Some qualities of the genre include fast-paced action, a large arsenal, and often a lower resolution art style. Good examples include Dusk, 40K Bolt Gun, and my personal favorite, Ultra Kill. Disruptor was Insomniac Games' first title, and was released, holy shit, 30 years ago for the PlayStation. They would go on to make classics like Spyro for the PS1 and Ratchet & Clank for the PS2. Disruptor, however, would not go down as a classic. Despite good scores from critics, it did not sell particularly well. Disruptor has 13 missions and 2 difficulties, normal and hard mode. I couldn't find anything concrete, but I'm pretty sure that in hard mode, enemies attack more often and their projectiles are faster and do more damage. What sets it apart from other shooters at the time is the psionic system. Throughout the game you acquire 5, technically 6 if you're splitting hairs, psionic abilities. What's even more novel for the time is that they have their own dedicated button and can be used at the same time as your main arsenal. And I can hear the more astute of you saying, well, that doesn't sound so special. BioShock had a pretty similar thing going on, and that was like 2007. Well, first of all, things were a lot clunkier back then. This was 1996. We didn't even have analog sticks yet. I don't know why I said we like I was there. I was born in 99. Hopefully this serves as a good segue into the controls of Disruptor. Due to the aforementioned lack of analog sticks, console shooters at the time had to get a little creative for their control schemes. For Disruptor, it goes like this. The D-pad controls both the camera and forward movement. Up and down move you forward and backwards, while left and right turn the camera. OSHA regulation in the 90s meant that shooter protagonists had to wear a neck brace on sight, meaning that there was no looking up or down. Let's say you wanted to move left without turning your whole body 90 degrees. Don't worry, using L2 and R2 you can strafe left and right respectively. X fires your weapon, while square uses your equipped psionic. There are a few control presets that swap a couple things around, but that's the default. For anyone under 30, me included, this control scheme is incredibly daunting on paper, but it's not bad once you get used to it. It only took me a few missions to adjust. It sounds obvious, but when you're using an analog stick or a mouse, the speed that you move or look is dependent on how much oomph you give the input. The harder you press, the faster you move or look. But a button only has 2 states, pressed or not pressed. Because of this, your movements are fairly predictable. Get good with it and you're an untouchable god, at the cost of your fingers starting to hurt if you lock in too hard. Each mission starts with an FMV cutscene and they're delightfully low budget. Look at that, the game takes place in 2196 and the walls are made of bare plywood. There's something so charming about them though. The performance is so earnest, it's endearing. These actors walked into a set made of plywood and cardboard and said, oh yeah, I can work with this. Here, see for yourself.
That's a vintage terraformer. It's at least 10 years old.
Very astute. 10 years ago, the government sent a group of contractors to resurface Neptune's largest moon, Triton, for farmland. They've been living and working in these terraformers without any problem. Until this morning.
Never been to Triton. Any pointers?
Yeah, don't drink the water and don't breathe the air.
You going to Neptune?
So what is Disruptor about? Well, far in the future, the Earth is unified under one nation, United Earth, and is in the process of colonizing the rest of the solar system. The Lightstormer Corps is an elite task force that answers directly to the president of United Earth. The current president, Krieger, is a former Lightstormer. Our protagonist is Jack, who's going through training with Troy, another prodigy. Jack's brother, Blake, is their commanding officer. Their late father was a legendary Lightstormer and close friend of President Krieger. Jack and Troy haven't been given any psionics yet. They have to prove themselves in the first level, the training Gauntlet. It's a decent tutorial level, making sure you know how to open doors and shoot your gun before the real game begins. It also has a few sneaky enemy placements that are still reasonably noticeable. Ambushes and enemies appearing from behind is pretty common, especially in later stages, and it teaches you to be diligent while the stakes are still relatively low. Good tutorial. The only 2 enemies here are these spiky balls and floating murder bots. Quick aside, The Ratchet and Clank trilogy was a huge part of my childhood, and there's so much shared DNA in these games. The designs of the enemies and weapons, the soundtrack, the sound design. It was very fun seeing the similarities here. You start with just the dinky little pistol, but there's an upgrade in here that makes it fire much faster and turns it into a real weapon. The next level is another training mission, the Chem Plant. But for this one, we've got our first psionic, Shock. It sends out a shotgun blast of electricity right in front of you. The range is super short. You've got to be practically kissing the enemy for it to hit, but it can do some decent damage. Your psionic power is tracked in the bottom right corner next to this blue mannequin head. Shock uses up 5 power, and we have no way to get more, so our brain taser has limited uses. Disruptor, like many PS1 games, has a notoriously low draw distance, meaning that most levels have thick fog to hide the terrain being loaded in. The chem plant is mostly outdoors, which means there's a thick piss filter over the whole level. Honestly, you get used to the fog pretty quickly, but every once in a while, there'll be a level that is close quarters enough that the fog isn't needed. These levels are genuinely beautiful, but then 5 minutes later you go to a new area and suddenly the air is full of fog again. It makes the other levels feel more ugly merely by comparison, which is kind of a bummer. This level has the phase rifle. It shoots slow projectiles that do less damage to robots, but is decent against organic enemies. The next mission has a lot of robots, and the one after that gives my favorite weapon in the game, so I barely even used the phase rifle. The next level is the final training mission, and it's a little unique. Firstly, we get the Drain Psionic. It only uses 1 power and doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but when it hits an enemy, it spawns orbs that can be picked up to recharge your psionic power. It took some time to figure this out, but Drain is honestly so sick. Even though the damage is minimal, since you can fire and use psionics at the same time, it's pretty much a permanent damage per second boost. You can get into a pretty good rhythm of shooting, dodging, and using Drain. It's pretty fun. It also has some light tracking, which makes it a bit easier to use. The second unique thing about the level is the hostage droids. It's supposed to be a test to make sure you pick your targets and aren't just firing rapidly, but they just implemented it in the funniest way possible. Instead of failing the mission when you shoot one, they start following you and blow up. Imagine getting a job as a dishwasher and on your first day of training, the guy next to you drops a plate and it just explodes, killing him instantly. There's a hidden room with a plasma lance surrounded by a ring of hostage droids and enemies. The plasma lance is a one-time use beam weapon that honestly isn't that great. I try to shoot the gap, mess it up, and get insanely lucky as somehow only one of the hostages explodes close enough to do damage. First time anyone said that sentence. I then pick up the lance and accidentally use it in the empty room, wasting it. It's time for Jack's first real mission now. Some pirates have parked their mobile bases in a no parking zone on Jupiter, so we need to beam in and take out the anti-gravity engines. I forgot to mention earlier, but every cutscene ends with the same clip of the camera going into Jack's eye and him stepping towards this cardboard teleporter pad. Not to spoil anything, but these pirates know what's up. They carry and drop the AM blaster. Don't ask about the PM blaster. Or the BM blaster. This blaster is the Disruptor equivalent of a shotgun. Shotguns are my favorite weapons in most FPS games, unless the developers are cowards and make them suck for no good reason. Not only does the AM blaster slam ass, it has the unique ability to charge up a double shot. If you hold the fire button for about a second, when you release it, the gun will fire 2 shots at once. If you can master the art of combining your psionics with this gun, you've basically become an unstoppable force of nature. The Drain Psionic paired with a close-up charged AM blast kills 90% of enemies in the game. So my strategy in every room was to just lock onto my next victim, run straight at him screaming, and hit him with the Drain Blast special. That being said, this strategy absolutely eats up ammo, so unless there are enemies in the level that drop antimatter ammo, you better have a backup plan. This mission also gives us a healing psionic, which turns 20 power into 20% health. Great for super aggressive players like me. The mission goes well enough. So well, in fact, that this mysterious woman takes an interest in us. Can't relate. Jack is promoted to Corporal after the first mission, and President Krieger sends us a health upgrade. There are 4 health upgrades in the game. 2 of them are rewards for progressing through the campaign, and 2 are hidden in levels. Each one gives an extra 25% to your max health. This is the part of the video where I admit I am not a great secret hunter. I only found one of them, and it was on my second playthrough. Much like Doom, Disruptor has a status screen after every level, telling you your percentage completion in terms of enemies killed and areas found. I didn't 100% a single mission after the first. I got close on a couple, but I guess I'm just not good at rubbing my face against walls looking for hidden doors. I did find the hidden lock-on cannon in this level. It's pretty neat. It shoots balls that lock onto and chase enemies. I didn't use it much because the explosion can hurt you, and I kept coming down with a wicked case of blown up. On Triton, a moon of Neptune, a terraforming colony was attacked by, well, something. I won't ruin the surprise. We're being sent there to investigate, and meanwhile, Troy's got a special mission on Mars. The terraformers are overrun by mutant badgers that shoot fireballs at you. Won't see that on Discovery Channel. Or maybe you will, I think they just kind of make shit up these days. Outside, there are these weird Cyclops-looking guys that have the funniest death animation I've ever seen. Troy was killed on Mars, and no wonder he did, because you get sent in with no weapons, and your psionics are gonna have to do most of the heavy lifting. Luckily, we've got another new psionic, Blast. It's really good if you know how to use it. Using it sends out an orb that can be controlled by turning the camera. Pressing the button again detonates the orb, doing huge damage to nearby enemies. It's fairly expensive, using up 25 power. Luckily, enemies hit by it will drop power orbs, just like with Drain. A lot of the time, it won't give you more power than it costs to cast it, so it's more like a cost subsidy than a power generator. I forgot to mention this before, thanks for listening to my ramblings for this long, but different enemies drop different amounts of psionic power when you drain them. In this level, we're after the alien orb. The outdoor area has a bunch of these Ratchet and Clank looking enemies, and the indoor section killed me a couple times. It's this long winding path surrounded by damaging floor. These squid dudes lob goop at you from the sides, and other aliens get in the way and shoot you with their strap-ons. This section's kinda hard, especially on hard mode, imagine that, and my solution was to just abandon any pretense that I was gonna come anywhere close to 100%ing this level. Yeah, I just ran through really fast and bombed the shit out of any hula hoop demons in the way. We grab the orb, it amplifies our psionics for a bit, and I'm done talking about this mission. Allegedly, that woman from the other cutscene was trying to stop Krieger from getting the orb, but we were just too sick with it. Jack is sitting here staring at plywood when his brother comes in and tells him to keep that orb a secret. Jack brings up their late father for like the 4th time, and I'm sure that won't come up again. The next mission is in Antarctica. Some scientists have been studying the mutants from the earlier missions, and things have gotten out of hand. We need to find the genetic databank left in the lab. I like this mission. The first section is very tight, but that means that the low draw distance doesn't matter. There's no fog here, and honestly, it's such a breath of fresh air having this kind of clarity. This level is long and hard though. Kind of like my AM blaster. Halfway through the level, you enter the lab and suddenly the air is thick with lean again. The big ass mutants down here have AM cyclones. Don't ask me about PM cyclones. I already made that joke. The AM cyclone is the other weapon that uses antimatter ammo. It shoots like 7 explosive shots at once, and is probably pretty good. It sure as hell did a lot of damage when the enemy used it. You get the shield psionic that fully blocks damage at the cost of 15 big ones. Honestly, I think it's objectively the worst psionic. The level wants you to use the shield whenever these cyclone guys are on the field, but why do that when you can just play completely out of your mind and barely get hit at all instead? Why waste your psionic power on not taking damage when you can just not take damage for free? After the mission, while Jack is eating his Dr. Seuss meal, Blake gives him the second free health upgrade. The sulfurine mines on Io have been taken over by the Space Mafia. Sulfurine is used to make antimatter ammo, so it's time to get nasty. This level features the return of the piss filter, and the mines probably smell like fart. The enemies here drop the phase repeater. It's better than the phase rifle because it shoots faster. It's worse than the phase rifle because it has 3 barrels and 2/3 of your shots miss. Also, these Terminator guys drop antimatter ammo, so they're my best friends. This mission's got a cool gimmick where there's a series of elevators, and almost every one has a secret floor if you ride it twice. Speaking of elevators, one of my few gripes with the game has to do with them. When you enter an elevator, there's absolutely no way to know which side of the exit is going to be on. There were so many times where I got into an elevator and took a bunch of damage because the exit was behind me. Not to mention, some levels love having you blind jump into holes full of enemies and hope they're not behind you when you land. I haven't mentioned the Zodiac, have I? They're hidden in some levels and are one use like the Plasma Lance, but they're like the BFG from Doom. For those not in the know, the BFG is a big fucking gun that deletes every enemy in the room. There's one hidden in this level, and I use it on a single enemy because I'm a dumb fuck. The level ends with these stupid ass conveyor belts that make me want to say bad words. Blake is on leave in New Atlantis for some vacation time. Great name for a city, by the way. It's like going on a cruise on the Titanic too. President Krieger is about to send us there when an emergency transmission comes in. The reactor has gone critical and it's going to explode. To save our brother, and all the people in New Atlantis, I suppose, we have to, and I'm not paraphrasing this, it's the exact quote, get in, kick ass, and get the core shut down ASAP. This level also makes me want to say bad words, but in a good way. You've got a 30-second time limit before the reactor explodes. That is not nearly enough, but luckily there are these side rooms with backup cooling valves that will add to the time. It's frantic, stressful, honestly a little frustrating, and definitely not designed to be beat on the first try. It was definitely the mission with the highest percentage of kids asking their older brother to beat the level for them. Relief turns to pants-shitting terror when you flip the switch at the end, but the countdown doesn't stop. The reactor blows up anyway, and we're teleported out at the last second. We were pulled out by that same woman who's been watching us. Her name is Eve. I don't remember the game ever telling us this, but Wikipedia says that's what it is. She tells us that President Krieger set us up, and that he murdered everyone in New Atlantis, Jack's brother included. She's a part of the Alliance of Democracy, a resistance group of sorts. Krieger has the orb, and the genetic databank, which means he has infinite psionic power, and can create an army of mutants that take over everything. Kinda weird to blow up a whole city just to tie up loose ends. I mean, we use these teleporters all the time, why not just redirect it and send us into a giant meat grinder or something? Eve gives us the ultimate psionic, the Terra Blast. It's literally just a direct upgrade to the regular blast. The only difference is that the explosion goes through walls. They could have explained this a little better, because I thought the orb could go through walls, and I kept wasting power trying to use it. We take the Terra Blast and teleport right into Krieger's orbital condo. Of all of the standard levels, this one gave me the most trouble. Mostly because it's designed around the Terra Blast and I didn't know how it worked. There's another mechanic in Disruptor that made my Terra Blast usage much more error prone. You see, when you use a psionic, if you don't have enough power to cast it again, then the game automatically switches you to Drain. Usually, that's pretty helpful, but when you use the Terra Blast, it's common to straddle the line of being able to cast it. What I mean by that is if you have 40 power and use it, you'll drop down to 15, and it'll switch you to Drain. But then you'll grab all the power orbs dropped by the enemies, bringing you back up to 30. That's more than enough to cast it, but you'll still be on Drain. So often I would walk into a room, try to bomb everyone, and then release a little piddle instead. All the enemies in the room would laugh at me for walking in with my pants down and then shoot me a bunch. Eventually, I made it to Krieger's office, but it was a trap. Jack gets put in an off-brand saw trap, and Krieger reveals that he killed Jack's father after he found out about his evil plans. He's gonna use the extractor to take the Terra Blast from us, and it leads into a nightmare level. I'm not being cute and saying that this level is a nightmare. I mean, it is. It's my least favorite. It's a literal nightmare sequence taking place in our own brain. We're attacked by brain spiders and weird walnuts. Luckily, it's pretty short. Jack destroys the extractor and contacts what's-her-name. There's a teleporter at the end of the prison complex that we can take to go after Krieger. This level's cool. It's got indoor and outdoor sections, and it made me feel smart because I found a lot of the secrets. End of story. The final level doesn't have a cutscene, which is cool because I'm kind of getting sick of explaining them. The mission isn't too hard. There's a lot of invisible dudes that appear and shoot you, but the Terra Blast takes care of them easily. The final boss fight with Krieger takes place outdoors on a very purpley gray arena. He uses the AM Cyclone and the lock-on rocket. This fight punished me a bit on hard mode because he would sometimes shotgun blast the AM Cyclone, and it can genuinely one-shot you if you're close enough. When he's low on health, he'll send out psionic power orbs. Collecting them gives you a boost of power, but the ones you don't collect turn into seeking projectiles after a little bit. I played the game on both regular and hard mode because I'm a real gamer. The ending changes depending on which difficulty you choose. In the normal ending, Eve is elected president and appoints Jack as commander of the Lightstormers. In the hard mode ending, Jack becomes president instead. Both endings end with Jack giving Eve a big old kiss while the orb watches and glows. Weird ass orb. The game rightly tells me I rock, and that's Disruptor. The narrative of Disruptor was surprisingly really cohesive. There's a lot of foreshadowing in the very limited cutscenes. Like how Troy, they mention that he's not very good with psionics, but he's really good with guns. And then the mission that he dies in, it's the one where you get sent in, don't have your guns, and only use psionics. Or in the Reactor mission, before you leave, President Krieger says he has experience with the reactors and tells you about the coolant. And of course he would have experience with them. He sabotaged it in the first place. A lot of cool little things like that. Man, this game was a lot of fun. There were some minor gripes, but they were exactly that. Minor. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you had a good time. I sure did. It was fun seeing the work of a studio that would go on to make very nostalgic titles for me, and seeing the similarities. Also, the AM blaster ammo looks like balls. I thought you'd want to know.
Hey, it's your boy, Skinny Penis